This is the Louie Tee Network.
Then it gets even better when your team makes the playoffs.
In the L.A.B.
Who else could it be but me, your me? Louie Tee, welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Wildcard weekend, NFC action. First game on Sunday. Let me say this first before I start. Man, that was a hell of a game. But normally in sports, and I'm a hell of a sports fan. I won't say I'm the biggest sports fan because I'm not a big hockey guy. I'm not a big baseball guy. And hell, to a certain extent, I can do without basketball a lot of the time. But I'm a hell of a football fan. But in sports in general, you generally don't get what you want as a fan. And I've been salivating, as probably many of you at home have been, about the prospects of the Seahawks going to Carolina in the second round of the playoffs and having that be a barn burner. I'm talking about knock down, drag out type of slobber knock. I mean, guys getting tossed out of the bar and the fights spilling out into the street. That's the kind of game I was looking for. And I said, you know what, in sports, you generally don't get what you want, man. We ask for things, we put it on our wish list, and then the football gods or the basketball gods or the baseball gods say, man, we're not doing that. That's not in our plans, man. So to get what I actually wanted, and this is no slight at the Vikings, because that would have made my team's opportunity to make it further. And again, we got to take care of business in our game, but it would have made my team's opportunity to get to the postseason a lot more enjoyable. But look, at the end of the day, this was a game that was there for the taking, and the Vikings had a golden opportunity. You can't ask for much better. 27-yard field goal. Let's jump into this breakdown quickly. Aggressive opening drive, and I talked about the cold, frigid temperatures in Minnesota and how that was going to affect the game. Well, it did. And we'll talk about the cold weather and how it affected the game as we go through this breakdown. But the Vikings, I thought, came out aggressive. On the first possession of the game, Teddy Bridgewater was throwing on early downs. They went for it on fourth down and converted once in their own territory. I said, look, man, they're not playing around. And even though that drive didn't result in any points, I was impressed with the aggressive nature of this football team. They seem like a different team than the last time these two teams met, when it was a trounce, 38-7 Vikings victory. So you can see that the demeanor was different, and the message that head coach Mike Zimmer, pass me the keys to your Pima, had delivered to his team was, look, we were banged up last time we met. We didn't have all of our guys. We got all our stuff back this time. And we're a different team this time around. We're going to show them. And they looked more aggressive early to start this game. And even though they didn't get any points out of it, I thought that was impressive. What I also thought was impressive was that the crowd was into it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But the first big play of the game, John Ryan, the punter of the Seahawks, is back to field a punt. It's a low snap, and again, that could be attributed to the weather if you want. It just wasn't a good snap, and there were a couple of those by their long snapper. So I think that had more to do with the weather than anything else. But it's a low snap, it hits the ground, he's got to scoop it up. He looks up, he sees Adam Thielen coming at him, but I don't think he had to run. I think he panicked because Adam Thielen was off balance. He fell down, he was not going to block the kick if he would have just kicked the football, but he just saw a flash of color that wasn't his own. He panicked, he ran with the football, tried to pick up the first down, got upended, dumped on his face, and didn't pick up the first down deep in Seahawks territory. Gave the Vikings great field position. They ended up getting a field goal out of that. And I talked about this in the preview for this game. I said, Minnesota, if you get opportunities to score points, you must take advantage of them. This is just like a turnover. It's exactly what it is. You got to take this, and you got to get in the end zone. They had to settle for a field goal. And so, 3-0 early in the ball game. John Ryan ended up coming back in the game, but it looked like for a minute there, he might not be able to get. Look, those punters, man, those little 2-bar face masks. I mean, what are we doing here, man? That bar came right down, busted him in his nose, busted his nose all up. He took a nice little face dive and a face plant, but that was the end of the first quarter. 3-0, Vikings up after the snafu by the Seahawks. Now let's talk about this Vikings crowd, because I thought they were huge. And this is why home playoff games matter. Even though the Vikings weren't victorious, they don't have a chance in this game to me if they're in Seattle. But because this game is in Minnesota, the crowd got amped up. It's cold. They're used to the weather a little bit more so than the Seahawks are. the crowd was so instrumental early in this game. They forced the Seahawks to use all 3 of their timeouts. And I heard Pete Carroll talking about them having communication issues in the headset and things of that nature. I don't think that was the gist of the problem. Give some credit to this Vikings crowd. They were loud. You could hear it on television. I can't even imagine how loud they were actually in the stadium. They were loud. They had no idea when the snap was being called, and they had a number of times where Russell Wilson had to simply call timeout because they were going to have a delay of game penalty. And actually, later on in the first half, they did have a delay of game penalty, and it was a huge one. It took them out of field goal range. They were right there on the cusp of field goal range. They ran a draw. It was going to pick up about 4 yards on 3rd and long. They were going to kick a field goal. Instead, they had a delay of game penalty, pushed them back 5 yards. They completed a 3-yard pass and elected to go for it on 4th down. Russell Wilson is then not able to complete the pass, and it was a failed 4th and long attempt and no points for the Seahawks. So the crowd was huge in this game early on for the Minnesota Vikings. And I also thought Russell Wilson missed an opportunity deep, and you can directly attribute this to the cold weather. He throws a moon ball up deep to Doug Baldwin. He was wide open. Behind the defense on the corner route, they love to run that flag route through the Seahawks. He was wide open, split the corner that was dropping in the zone coverage. Safety wasn't going to make it in time. Russell Wilson has hit this play to Doug Baldwin, among others, so many times it's not even funny. And the route was there, but because of the cold weather, I don't think he actually got a good grip of the football, and his hands were probably freezing in those frigid temperatures. Ball went up in the air, and it was like a punt. It stayed there forever. Gave the 2 Vikings defenders time to get to the football, converge on it, and knock it away. No points for the Seahawks. They go into the halftime break down 3-0. Let's go to the 3rd quarter, and the Seahawks come out. They come out with an inspired drive, and they were moving the football a little bit, and then they got bogged down after they crossed midfield. Once again, they go for it on 4th down. This was one of those games where you knew if you were kind of in that middling territory, no man's land, where you're too close to punt, a little too far, and a little bit out of your comfort zone, kicking a field goal in this type of weather, you're going to go for it. And so the Seahawks went for it again. This time, ball is deflected and picked off by Trey Waynes, the rookie for the Minnesota Vikings, and that had to feel good for him. And I was thinking to myself, if they give him a couple of blocks, and you heard Chris Collinsworth on the telecast say, he can fly, yeah, he can run. And if he got a lane and he turned on the jets, he was gonna go. And so I was like, hey man, if you guys can block, this could really turn into something big, and even if he doesn't score, he could give you some prime real estate to maybe go get a touchdown, because that's what it's going to take to win this game. I was thinking in my mind at the time, instead he gets tackled, gives them some good field position, but it's not great, not too far away from where they would have gotten the ball had it been incomplete anyhow. But no points again for the Seahawks is the bigger picture here. No points still on the scoreboard as this defense for the Vikings played their hearts out in this ball game. So then you have an opportunity, and on that same possession, Russell Wilson missed a deep ball, and really he didn't miss it as much as it would have been nice if he could have put a little bit more air on it. But Lockett, you're a rookie, actually had the football in his hands, and so Tyler Lockett could have caught that football. It was a really good play by the corner, and then with Trey Waynes again to get his hand around, see the football, and put his hands up there, and it kind of dislodged the football. I bet you if you asked Tyler Lockett if he was supposed to catch that football, he'd tell you, yeah, I should have held on to that. It was a pretty good throw. It wasn't a great throw, but it was a good enough throw for them to connect, and that would have put the ball inside the Vikings' 10-yard line had he come up with that football. But nonetheless, it was incomplete. They end up throwing the interception on 4th down. Now it's Minnesota Vikings football. They end up getting a field goal off that possession as we head to the 4th quarter. It's 6-0, and they add another field goal later in the quarter, very end of that quarter, to make it 9-0 heading to the final frame of this football game. And the Seahawks, it seemed like as that 4th quarter started, that playoff experience and that hourglass kicked in. It's almost like that sixth sense that a team that's been here before knows, okay, we're running out of time. We got to go now. And so that first possession of the 4th quarter, Seahawks came out and had an inspired possession and move it down the field. And one of the craziest plays you'll see in terms of an ad-lib play that started out as bad as it could be, turning out to be for the best. Russell Wilson gets a hot sauce snap. I'm talking about hot sauce to go. He had no idea that football was coming as hard and heavy and fast as it did. He's still putting his mouthpiece in his mouth, and the ball comes shooting past him. He tries to put his hand up, ball goes by him, and it literally bounces a good 15 to 17 yards behind. This is about to be a catastrophe. He slides, picks it up, and as cool as the other side of the pillow, he scoops it up in one fell motion as he slides, picks the ball up, gets outside of the container. This is where the problem was. Captain Munnerlyn coming on the blitz, he should have come under control. Take a page out of Everson Griffin's book. When they ran bootleg to Everson Griffin's side, he stood there, kind of made sure Russell Wilson wasn't going to get outside of him, put him in a box, and then was able to corral him. He should have done the same thing. Instead, he comes, and this is what you see from secondary members when they come blitzing. They come crazy, willy-nilly, out of control. Russell Wilson just takes a nice outside angle, gets around him, and it buys him the time he needs to locate a wide open Tyler Lockett, who then catches the football and proceeds to run for another 35 yards down to the Vikings 5-yard line. 2 plays later, Doug Baldwin in the end zone on a 3-yard touchdown. It is now 9-7, and just like that, here comes the 2-time NFC champion Seattle Seahawks down 2 points after being down the entire game. They're now within a field goal of taking the lead, and that would come on the very next possession as the ensuing possession, Adrian Peterson, AD, puts the football on the carpet, something that he struggled with his entire career. Great play again. I talked about this last night with Jeremy Hill. Sometimes you have to give credit to the opposition. One Seattle Seahawks defender was holding his arm. I want to say it was KJ Wright, the linebacker, was holding Adrian Peterson's arm, so he wasn't able to put the second hand back on the football to cover it up. And because of that fact, the ball was exposed out here. And give some credit to Cam Chancellor. Cam went in and pulled the football out. And Bam Bam got it on the ground, and the Seahawks recovered in Vikings territory at the 40-yard line. A couple of plays later, they're in field goal range. And you know Steven House Money Hauska is not going to miss. Hasn't missed a postseason field goal yet, just tied the NFL record for most consecutive field goals to start a playoff career with 14 as he bangs it home from 40-something yards out to make it a 10-9 game. At this point, you're thinking Seahawks got him right where they want him now. They sat there, the Vikings let him hang around, weren't able to get in the end zone, and just like that, they've got him now, and they're about to get these boys, and they're not going to give up this lead. But old problems for the Seahawks crept back into this game as they've blown some leads this season that's been well documented, and so there were opportunities for the offense to put this game away. 1 or 2 first downs running the football would have put this game away, but the Vikings defense, I talked about this earlier, they were outstanding on the day, stopping the Seahawks from converting on third down. And really, Andrew Sendejo had a chance to make a huge play, dropping an interception on an errant Russell Wilson pass that would have gave them excellent field position and a chance to really do some serious damage. But all of that is a non-factor and issue because the Vikings get the football late with all of their timeouts remaining. Seahawks had already squandered one of their timeouts earlier in the game, and you know how second half timeouts are. They're like gold. I tell you, treat them like gold. They're precious jewels. You cannot waste second half timeouts. This is an exact reason why, as the Minnesota Vikings get a huge pass interference call, and it was the right call, as Cam Chancellor had gotten away with one earlier in the game on the secret weapon, Jerick McKinnon, down the seam on a seam ball that I thought was a hell of a play by Earl Thomas, but he held up Jerick McKinnon just enough so that the secret weapon couldn't run under the football. He would have been there had Cam Chancellor not gotten away with a little bit of a tug of the jersey to slow him up just that half a second. We talk about football being a game of inches. Well, that play simplifies that and exemplifies that, and you saw it on that play because had he been there a split second earlier, he would have been there to get the football, cover it up before Earl Thomas came over to dislodge the football. So this time he didn't get away with it. At the top of the route ran by Kyle Rudolph, he impeded him, ball comes. Good job of Teddy Bridgewater reading the coverage and getting him the football in the face of pressure. Pass interference gives them great field position in Seattle Seahawks territory. Very next play, an out route to Kyle Rudolph. He beats Cam Chancellor, gets up the sideline, picks up a huge chunk of yardage, putting the Vikings in field goal range. Now it's a matter of can they run out the rest of the time with one more first down. If not, you eat up as much time as possible because the Seahawks have blown one of their timeouts. They're not going to be able to stop the clock one of these times, which is going to leave them with little to no time really to get in the field goal range and come back and take the lead if the Vikings are able to convert a field goal. And that's exactly what happened. They run the football 3 times. They get it down to about 29 seconds left in the football game, and they trot Blair Walsh. He was 3 of 3 in the game on field goal attempts. out for a 27-yard field goal. I'm thinking to myself, wow, the Minnesota Vikings have done it. This is a team that I didn't think was ready for this type of spot. I didn't think they were mature enough. Too many young guys on this team to actually know what it's going to take to get a game like this done. And here they are, 29 seconds away in a 27-yard field goal, the difference between them upsetting. And this is the team everybody's crowning in the NFC, the team you don't want to play. They're 29 seconds and a 27-yard field goal away from ousting the Seattle Seahawks, the two-time NFC champions. Literally one field goal away from ousting these guys out of the postseason. And they had a kick snafu earlier where the holder, Jeff Locke, the punter, didn't turn the laces. Luckily, on that one, he got under the laces. He didn't directly kick the laces, so the ball didn't hook. Well, this time, he didn't turn the laces, and I don't know if he got lazy or if he didn't think he had time to turn the laces. Whatever, he didn't turn the laces. This time, Blair Walsh kicks the laces directly. The ball hooks. It never drifts over into the middle of the field, and you have your end result being a shanked field goal. The Minnesota Vikings fought their hearts out, their guts out, as Joe Gibbs used to say, but come up short, 12-10. The Seattle Seahawks, and this is what the good teams find a way to do, by hook or by crook, they survive and advance on to the divisional round, and we got what we wanted. And I feel bad for Vikings fans, just like I felt bad for Cincinnati Bengals fans last night. But you gotta find a way to win. That's the name of the game in the postseason, and the Vikings weren't able to do that. The Seattle Seahawks move on to the divisional round, and we get the matchup we've been salivating and drooling for. Seattle Seahawks get their rematch versus the Carolina Panthers in the divisional round next Sunday. Boy, that's going to be a fun game to watch. I can't wait. Bart Scott! Can't wait. Gut-wrenching loss for Mike Zimmer and his crew. I thought they did a phenomenal job of scheming them up and giving themselves a chance to win in this game. And unfortunately, it came down to the right foot of Blair Walsh, and he wasn't able to get it done. This defense, tremendous. This is a young football team. I expect them to be back. And this playoff experience will bode well for the Vikings moving forward. I know fans don't want to hear that right now, but that's the simple fact that this team will be battle-tested because of this experience moving forward. I think they'll be able to get the job done next season. For the Seahawks, big win. You put it in the rearview mirror and you move forward and see if you can't find a way to get back to the NFC Championship game for the third consecutive season. That's going to do it for the Seahawks and Vikings in Wildcard Weekend. It happens in the National Football League, whether big or small. We cover it all here in the lab. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything National Football League. Bart Scott, can't wait. Packers, Redskins, 4:40 p.m. See you again. Gary Anderson, anybody? Ouch. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie Tee, be sure to follow me on Twitter @InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page @InTheLabRoom. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and @InTheLabRoom on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.
Then it gets even better when your team makes the playoffs.